Oh, my camera's gone. Oh, there we go. I do not hear you on stream.
That is because it was muted, so good call.
All right, testing 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. Give me 1 sec because I downloaded the tier maker thing on my laptop and not my.
All right, we're good audio wise.
All right.
Celebrate Thanksgiving Eve by watching episode 197 Ego Chall Podcast. On over. Official death of LAG and more live now. Links below. Post.
All right. Delete the row. Save it. Screenshot it. All right, you ready to get started?
Dessert.
Hello and welcome to episode 197 of the Ego Chall Podcast. My name is Preston Byers, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Binkowski. And on today's episode, we are going to do our annual power rankings and preseason award predictions. We did this last year and maybe 2 years ago. I know we did something similar, but I don't know if we had it as formalized as we have it now. But we're going to do that for, I think, the bulk of this show, but also we will talk about what happened this past weekend with the CDL Monster Launch Invitational. And that definitely affected our power rankings because I certainly would not have maybe been as generous to some teams and certainly not as down on other teams if this tournament had not happened this weekend. And we'll get into some other stuff as well, including the passing of one Gorillas. So we will get on to all of that. But before we do that, how you doing, Bake?
Man, I mean, bring up passing of Gorillas. That's entering Harambe territory. I don't know if it's too soon or not for that, but yeah.
That was like
Happy
10 years ago. That gorilla has been dead longer than it was alive, I think.
But yeah, happy Thanksgiving Eve. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Um, like Preston said, yeah, we got our first official tournament action, even though it was an online tournament. There was some talk on the Twitter sphere about whether this counts as like a championship or whatnot. I saw that. I don't know if you saw any of that. I didn't really put much thought into it because I looked at it as like a kickoff, especially it's an online tournament. But I get the argument because of the prize pool and whatnot. But yeah, we got our first tournament action of Black Ops 7. We got our rule set now for um, the official start of matches coming up here in a little over a week. The map set. We got our final uh, roster officially confirmed now. Surprisingly, didn't go into December. We officially got it. And yeah, I'm rambling, but we got a bunch of stuff to talk about with power rankings, preseason stuff, and all that good jazz. So yeah, might as well jump right in.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that this is being talked about as a championship is because Optic won it. Like, let's be real about that. Like, if our boys, Orgless at the time, if they had won this. I don't know if people are talking about like let's add another championship to the total or anything. I don't think I also just like in general because the CDL broadcast was like kind of all over the place. It was like a real casual thing. They weren't like commentating on every single match. They were just popping in and popping out when they could get somebody in the lobby. I think that just kind of like shows that this is not something that should be counted toward any kind of championship. Like this is not even a frag cup. If you want to use like a really old example of like online tournaments.
Well, I saw people saying like it's a 2K or a 5K, and I didn't want to go that far because I mean that was for pro points. Like this was still at least like I think it was 20,000 or 25,000 for
Something like
first
that.
place. Like it wasn't nothing, but yeah, I think this is just I think you made a good point there about the eventual winner having an impact on that conversation. But regardless, yeah, it was just good to get to watch some competitive Call of Duty for the first time in a couple months.
Yeah, and let's just talk about it real quick, and because we'll talk about I think a lot of it, or at least in relation to specific teams as we go through our power rankings and maybe even the preseason award predictions. So obviously this was I think a $75,000 total prize pool, and I think like you said it was like 25,000 for the winner, which was Optic Texas. Optic wins in the grand finals against quote unquote still Orgless, but it is the Paris Gentlemates, which we'll get to in just a minute. But yeah, it's LAG Gentlemates versus Optic in the grand finals. It goes to a game 7. Optic wins. Optic had absolutely demolished teams going into this. Like they hadn't dropped a single map before they even swept LAG going into this in the winners finals. And then it was a really competitive grand finals, which was pretty cool. What did you think of Optic's performance? Obviously, defending two-time defending world champions. I think potentially they have the best player in the world on their team, and with how Hook played, maybe the second best player on the in the world as well. What did you think of Optic's performance in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean they didn't lose a map until the finals against Gentlemates. So, pretty dominant showing to start to the year. I think a lot of people, uh, most people heading into this tournament had Optic at the top or in the top two at the very least of most of their power rankings. And I think this just further illustrated how you know the bar's been set basically, and Optic have shown what they're capable of on the new game right out of the gate. And, coming off of a season last year where at the start of the year they, not, I guess not the very start, but, they had all the Pred situation and the 0-18 stretch there
Mm-hmm.
for Major 2, like a strong start to the season. Uh, is probably a much more welcome sight for a lot of Greenwall fans. So I thought it was uh, pretty impressive for Optic to come out and continue to still look strong, especially when some of the other teams that were uh, expected to be their top competition, at least in my eyes, and I feel like most people's eyes, like LAT and FaZe, we got to see Optic play against FaZe, and it was a 3-0, and LAT didn't even get to the point to play Optic. So um, it was just a again, like you were saying before we started, you don't want to put too much stock into the first online tournament of the season, but you don't want to not give credit where credit is due, and Optic definitely opened some eyes to anybody if they were expecting them to maybe take a step back, or if there was anybody questioning whether they were gonna carry their success over from the end of last season. It's definitely the place they want to be, and anything less than first, we always say for the Green Wall is not great, but especially uh, in this position, like this is just an ideal start for them, and it'll be interesting to see how they build on it.
Yeah, and I think when you're the only team going into the season that did not make a roster change,
Yeah.
you are expected, especially early on. Like, who knows when we get to February, March, April, and later, like how that kind of works out. We obviously saw with Vancouver last year, the roster changes what actually turned their season around. Optic, the same thing happened just later in the season. But obviously Optic is defending world champions. Like I said, I personally think probably the best player in the world on their team, and everybody else is kind of figuring things out with this roster. Like they play Carolina. Carolina has one person from last season on their team. They played FaZe. They had two people. They played Gentlemates. They have no people, right? So I think that could play a factor. Obviously, they're still great, and that I have some pretty bold predictions, I think, later on in the show about Optic in particular. But yeah, they looked awesome. Even in the grand finals where they lost 3 maps, they lost Colossus by 1, Colossus Search and Destroy by 1 in round 11. They lost Colossus Hardpoint by 10 points, 250 to 240, and they lost Exposure Overload 5-4. And in most of the other maps in that series, it were pretty decisive wins for Optic. So I think that bodes well for them. But I also do want to give a shout out to Gentlemates because, I think we were both really high on this team coming into this season. I feel like they're not being talked about enough as kind of like a true contender. And I think a part of that is the LAG stank on them a little bit because even though they're not technically LAG anymore, I think that just kind of holds over, especially being one of the worst teams in the league last year. And just, you don't really know what's going to be like when none of these guys, they've obviously Envoy and Ghosty played together, but like this team didn't play together last year and people are probably kind of on a wait to see basis with them. But that was really good to see them make a run. They obviously had to drop down to losers bracket to get back into the grand finals, but they beat Miami, LAT, Cloud9, and G2 Minnesota in this tournament. So, Miami and LAT is a pretty good back-to-back start to the season, preseason, whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty happy about Gentlemates. What do you think in general of how they performed this weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. How do I want to phrase this? I feel like other people were just more down on this team when the reports came out, as opposed to you and I. We were just higher than them on a lot of other people, and not in the sense of like, they're going to be the number one team, but it felt like there were just a lot of people that were dismissing this. I know even like
Yeah.
on the flank, they were talking about potential uh, clashes and like off out of the outside of the game personality
Yeah.
clashes and whatever, and like that's uh obviously the guys on the flank, former pro players who know some of these guys and maybe have teamed with some even and have those past relationships, they would probably know more about that than us, or they would know more about that than us if they know these guys. So that was kind of like a little bit of a red flag to me, just in the sense of like I was looking at this team on paper and I'm like, I really like this squad. And
Yeah.
then hearing that noise outside just made me question it a little bit. But this placing for them in this first tournament kind of like was like, okay, maybe, at least from the start of the game, like I do know kind of what I'm talking about, I guess. So little certification there for us in terms of expectations for the squad. Not gonna take this result from just this one tournament and run with it and say Gentlemates are second best team in the game or anything like that. But I just think, like, especially with the season Neptune had last year, like pairing that with a strong AR player in Sib who might not have had the best year last year, but obviously Ghosty and Envoy coming over from a strong season too. Like it just felt like an Envoy and Neptune SMG pairing could work, especially we've talked about Ghosty at length now, his multiple iterations of being a role player to being the superstar on the LAT team to then going back to a role player on LAT, and then now what role will he fill on this team? Like there's just so many angles to look at this Gentlemate squad from, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out for them. Uh, but I do, again, like there's just the fact that there's been the chatter from outside looking in that there could be potential like clashes or whatever from a personality standpoint on the squad that does, you know, have me a little concerned, but it's not the end of the world, and obviously winning fixes a lot of that. So,
Yeah.
or at least it can. So, if these guys get off to a hot start, I think it could be a strong season. And we talked about it last year at multiple points. There were times where Gentlemates wasn't even, you know, playing more than one or two series at LAN tournaments, and their matches were still some of the most watched, most viewed
Yeah.
matches of the season. Just that fan base is craving for a contender and craving for a good team to support. So if they were supporting a team last year that really struggled, if this team gets off to a hot start, that could be a really good sign for the viewership of their matches and the viewership of the league as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you said, it's kind of validating for us when, you're really high on a team and then they do well to start, you were like, okay, like, we were right. Like, at least for one weekend, we were right. We'll see if that kind of lasts. And like you said, there is stuff going on, or potential stuff that could go on, like interpersonally, but our job or our idea is not to dive too deep into that, like, because if we did that, I would never have predicted that the Optic Dynasty would have made it. Like I would never have predicted Crimsix to be like a 3-time world champion, because he clashes with almost every single teammate that he's ever had, really. And I mean, other teammates, like his former teammates, have said that is like he's a really tough guy to be a teammate with, and yet he's potentially the greatest player of all time. That's just how it goes. I really do think a lot of the conflict is just they're all very competitive, and sometimes that kind of boils over. We saw it with Impact in 2013, like a lot of talent, a lot of really great players, but sometimes it just becomes too much and those teams break up. But if they have basically the same life cycle as Impact, then it kind of worked out for Gentlemates in the end, even if they break up by mid-season or whatever the equivalent of Anaheim would be, causing the breakup of Gentlemates. I think that would be a good trade for Paris, but we'll see. It's obviously we're not even into the season. I think we're gonna have to be slow rolling that. But yeah, they finished second in this tournament. It was a 16-team double elimination tournament. Every CDL team was involved, except one technically. And then there were 4 challengers teams that were also involved in this tournament. I thought it was interesting that only one of the challengers teams won the winner's bracket round 1 match. And then I want to say that only one won the losers bracket round 1. So pretty much by the end of losers bracket round 2, like all the challengers teams were out of the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's just kind of how it goes with like pro-am tournaments. We've seen that. In this case, it was Omit Brooklyn. They beat Surge in round 1 in the winners bracket, which we've talked about it before, but Vancouver is, I mean, it's essentially a challengers team. Like, it's a super young team with a lot of relatively inexperienced guys. Like we said, Gwyn has the most experience on this team, and he's like 21 years old, and he's been in the CDL for like 3 seasons. Everybody else is kind of like rookie year or sophomore year, which, kind of makes sense considering why they might lose to Omit Brooklyn. The losers bracket, Team War beat the Riyadh Falcons. So the Falcons kind of keeping up their tradition of being absolute butt at tournaments. I think it's still pretty surprising that War was able to pull that off, especially with our boy Douglas Sensor Martin leading the charge. I did see he had like a 0.6 KD at this tournament, so not great, but he got the dub against Falcons, and then they got beat by LAT. So I don't know if there's going to be any call-ups here from the challenger scene, but congrats to Omit Brooklyn. I mean, Omit's been like of all of the orgs, and it has been basically Omit and War have been the orgs that have like really been on the challengers train for years now, even when it makes absolutely zero sense to if they're just talking about the financials of it. So I'm happy to see that they won. But there were a lot of really weird results in this tournament, and I don't really know what to make of it. Is there a particular result or different specific placing in this tournament that you were kind of befuddled by? Because I definitely have a few that I was just like, I don't really know what to think of that, and I don't know if I should just completely disregard that. Is there anything like that on your end?
I think the two that are probably most surprising. I don't think most surprising. Well, in a positive way, the most surprising was that the third fourth match was G2 versus Cloud9.
Yeah.
I've said it multiple times now that I thought Cloud9 had the potential to be a team that starts out hot like last year's Carolina. I do not think this current iteration of Cloud9 is a team that will be like a top dog for the
No.
entire season, but just the makeup of this squad and the guys on the team, it felt like to me they have the capability to come out, get a hot start, maybe place well in the Major 1 qualifiers, and as a result, maybe even Major 1, and then after that they slowly teeter off, kind of like we saw with Carolina last year. But to other people, it was probably a little surprising to see them in that losers semifinals there. And then G2 was surprising probably to everybody.
Yeah.
But to me in particular, I did not envision a G2 versus Cloud9 loser semis, but that's where we're at. And not even that, G2 beat Thieves 3-0, and then they beat FaZe 3-2 to get to that matchup with Cloud9, which they won, and then they get third because they lose to General Mates in the losers final. So that's a pretty good run. G2 lost. I mean, that sums it up right there. G2 lost 3-0 in the first round of the winners bracket to Royal Ravens,
Yeah.
and then they go on a losers bracket run from round 1 to beat Stallions and Omet Brooklyn, which is, two amateur teams. It is what it is. But then Thieves, FaZe, Cloud9 to get to the General Mates match. Like, that's, again, not going to put too much stock into this, but I think that's a little bit of okay, we're going to have to keep an eye on G2 here and see what they got cooking up for the start of the season. Because maybe last year with Minnesota, they baited me a lot, and then
Yeah, they did.
I fell for it way too often. They had a ton of game 5s and a ton of reverse sweeps and a ton of almost reverse sweeps where they got to the game 5 and couldn't clutch up. I don't know, maybe this is a different year and they get those early results and build on it from there. I don't know, but I'd say those two teams, from a positive aspect, G2 and Cloud9 surprised me. FaZe, obviously, or sorry, not FaZe. FaZe, it's weird
It's a
when
little
FaZe doesn't
surprising.
get a top placing,
Yeah.
but, they did better than Thieves, so I think Thieves is the bigger surprise in terms of underperforming, and then Boston getting double first rounded, and Falcons too with the loss to Team War. Those were two of the other surprises on the losing end there.
Yeah, like real quick, Thieves is really surprising because they didn't even beat a CDL team at this tournament. They beat Telluride Bush in winners round 1. They get swept by Gentlemates in round 2. They drop down to losers. They play War. They 3-0 them, and then they play G2. G2 3-0s them. So they got 0-6'd by the CDL teams, and then they beat the challengers teams. Not great. I am an admitted Kenny skeptic, so if I want to push an agenda, I certainly will use this. But like obviously LAT had bad performances, especially online last season. They had bad performances on land too, like where it's just you're expecting the world of them, and then they don't show up, and then they go on a massive run, and they're the best team in the world pretty much within 3 weeks of that. So I don't really know if you can really make anything of that. Same with FaZe, because FaZe did beat Koi in this tournament 3-2. Then they play Optic, they get swept, they drop down, and then they end up losing in Game 5 to G2. So who knows really what to make of it. I would say the Falcons one was definitely like the most concerning because we've talked about it, but like the big question mark has been Xnid, and even Xnid does not make you lose to obviously lose to phase, like whatever, but then to lose to team war with sensor on the team, like that makes me that's like a pretty bit, like if it's not a red flag, it's a very dark yellow flag. It's kind of orangish. So I don't know what to make of this tournament. I I wish I would have done the power rankings before this tournament and then gone back and just made another set of power rankings to see how much it actually changed my opinion on things. So my actual power rankings are kind of a mix between them. When it suits me, I disregard the result of the launch invitational, and when I need it to back up my narrative, I use it. I think this is a cool thing that they've done. I hope that we see it next year. I did like that teams were streaming it, so it wasn't just on the CDL. Obviously, that did not happen for one team in particular, and we're blaming Temp for that. I guess I didn't know how that worked, but not great from Telluride Bush, aka TJ's team, for not streaming the matches, and they got like Barstool's attention, which I thought was hilarious to get called out by Barstool creators for not streaming. But I mean, what are you expecting of that team in particular? I will say, I not the team that I would pick to stream personally, but what do I know?
That's all I will say is there was obviously some of the three guys from Barstool who were involved in starting this Challengers journey with Telluride Bush. They obviously just don't know that much about TJ in particular. Not even blaming any of the other guys there, but like TJ's the last person that I am expecting to, if I'm gonna be like, yeah, I need you to stream, do content, do videos, etc. TJ is just historically that's never been his vibe. Like he'll throw the stream on here and there, but he's more of the competitor. When we've had the classic debate over the years of being a content creator while being a pro or just being a pro, like longtime viewers know all about that. So that was a funny little saga. I mean, Jersey Jerry, I think he's hilarious from Barstool. He had like his tweet. He was at like a funeral, and then he was trying to watch their match against Thieves, and there was just no POV of it because Thieves wasn't streaming too, which I think that's also kind of interesting. Of all the teams to not be streaming, like Thieves not doing it and then underperforming is a little bit weird, but so that was just unfortunate in terms of like the TJ and crew. Like if they were playing basically any other team in the first round, their match there would have been like a match link for the Barstool guys to watch, and there just wasn't. But then Jersey Jerry puts out that video of him ranting, which he does for the Steelers a lot, which is how I've come to know him over the years. And that got like 4 million views or something crazy on Twitter, and that's the potential for this. Like, I was texting you about it. Like, this isn't an actual Barstool team; it's really just three guys who work at Barstool trying to do a Challengers team. But with the power of that Barstool network and their reach on social media, like it could be huge, and it's a huge opportunity for TJ Spart, ProLoot, and Capsidal to, like I just can't fathom not trying to take advantage of this opportunity to grow their individual brands as much as they can, especially when they're in challengers. Like this feels like a really good opportunity. So we'll have to see if they learn from it, and I still expect them to be a good challengers team as they actually last as a roster and and don't change up with it.
Yeah, I think it would have made a lot more sense if they had been like, "Hey, Fellow, can you stream?" Like Fellow's team just in general, because I mean, Fellow streams and like he's a really nice, like, content friendly guy. So like he would have made a lot of sense. Obviously, if they'd probably known that Sensor was streaming, like Sensor is like the guy to do this, even though his POV was probably actually hilarious because he hasn't played competitive in so long. But I mean, they won a match, and that's more that could be said than Telluride Bush. So I did love that that Donnie was kind of taking heat on Twitter. It's like, I mean, he's the coach. Like I don't know. Like
He's not. He's a coach. He's basically like volunteering to
yeah,
help the guys that he's friends with,
and
you know,
he. If he was actually on the team, I'm almost certain that they would have streamed it because he would have streamed it. So,
yeah.
shout out our boy Tommy, Donnie. Yeah. So let's just get into the power rankings real quick. Oh, I did want to bring up actually one more thing, and I didn't forgot to put it in the actual notes. I don't know if you saw the Shotzi thing where he said entertainment greater than competitive, but TJ, just speaking of TJ, I guess, he tweeted. I think this was during or right after the launch invitational. He said, S&D with snipers with aim assist is legit awful. Are we playing Comp COD or Savannah Banana COD? And Scrap said, Scrap responded, said, chill, bro, all about the entertainment. And then Shotzi replied to that and said, entertainment greater than competitive. Y'all don't see the bigger picture. We are nothing without the scene. And then he clarified because someone said, I can't tell if this is genuine sarcasm or not. And he said, it's genuine. S&D has been boring the last couple of years, even with the snipe being OP. I still think it adds depth into the game. You have to constantly be on your P's and Q's where he can be sniping / how to counter him, et cetera, et cetera. I absolutely love Shotzi. When you brought up LAT not streaming, I thought to myself, that really actually makes a ton of sense because allegedly LAT was the team that kind of had an issue with Shotzi streaming scrims, if I'm not mistaken, last year. Like there was like some kind of stink behind the scenes about whether he should be doing that and like whether other teams kind of consented to it or whatever. I will say though that like he has the right perspective. I don't think really many players in the CDL have this kind of perspective, but just the idea of, the CDL players obviously just want it to be competitive. They just want it to be like best suited to them. And rightfully so, they have that right. But he's right when he says like, it really means nothing if we don't have a scene. Like if we make a really competitive game and it's absolutely boring to watch, then it doesn't matter. It does not matter what happens. That's kind of why like the tush push is going away after this season. Like, and I was like a tush push defender, and I think like, I mean, you do have to stop it there, but it's just not incredibly fun to watch when someone does it 4 times in a row. And that's just not going to be something that the NFL, obviously the most successful American sports league, they're going to be like, yeah, it might be competitive. It might be within the rules of our league, but we get paid really like almost trillions of dollars to put games on TV, not to just play them. Like the whole gimmick is we make money when we put the games on television. And if people don't want to watch it on television, we don't get that money. So that's kind of what I think the CDL should be going after, is obviously with as big of an audience as they could get with it being on Twitch and YouTube, just make it as entertaining as possible. Obviously there has to be some parameters. I'm not saying bouncing betties are going to be in COD and shotguns and everything, but there is kind of some give or take, or should be, in competitive, where the pros might not enjoy it to the degree that they want to, but the viewers get something out of it and it's worth it in that regard. So I don't know if you had any thoughts of that. I forgot to put it in the notes before we started here.
I mean, it is a little interesting. It's coming from Shotzi, but I mean, when you think about it, being on Optic, being, like you said, a guy who kind of was a part of that movement last year to reignite the streaming scrims. And yeah, I think, we've both said in the past we would like to see sniping. In some of these other games, it really hasn't been an option just because of how strong the aim assist has been and how strong the actual snipers were.
Yeah.
But it feels like in this game they might have found a way to make it work. I think it's still being tested. The other problem in past games that is a big issue in this game is smokes. Smoke grenades are obviously a good counter to sniping, because if you know a guy is sniping middle, you can throw a smoke and just block that off. but especially we saw it in the Monster Invitational in the finals. I think it was the last map. Envoy threw a smoke like at his feet, and he just completely one-wayed the guy on optic in the smoke. Like he could see the guy fine, and the guy on optic clearly couldn't see him. And head Ego Chall correspondent Tremi has also said to me that smokes are just insanely broken in this game, which that has been a major
Yeah,
issue
that's been
over the past
constant.
couple of years. So the fact that potentially snipers are being allowed in this game when smokes are almost unusable or just broken to the point that it's giving advantages to the people throwing the smokes, that has me a little concerned. Um, Obviously, in a perfect world, we find a way for the snipers to not just be insanely overpowered, maybe even some form. I think one thing that's always like, and I don't know how it would really feel in competitive Call of Duty, but like the scout sniper in CS:GO at least, or CS Source. I don't know if it's in CS2 still. Um, I'm pretty sure it's only a one-shot kill to the head
Yeah,
but maybe that's when they don't have armor or whatever. I know it doesn't kill in one shot to the body, and maybe that's something that would have to come to COD. It obviously wouldn't happen right now, but maybe that's one way we could look at having snipers be not just like insta this person's looking at you, you're dead. They have to actually hit their shot and hit you in the head in order to get the one shot kill
yeah.
and be rewarded for good aim. So there's a lot of things that could evolve from this, but the fact that it's being discussed again is a good thing. Fact that snipers are being considered, even if I would be surprised if they were used when the matches officially start, just because of what I've heard about the smokes, and with that being the only true counter at the start here, that has me a little concerned about the sniper's viability and not being GA'd. But who knows? Maybe they find some way to still allow it. We've seen everything from the sniper not being allowed to have attachments on it to uh, a whole bunch of different stuff over the years to try and get him in the game. And I just think, you think about some of the all-time best moments in competitive COD, like a lot of them involve snipers, especially from an S&D standpoint. Um, and that's been missing the last couple of years. So I am, as long as they are not just game breaking and just stupid OP, I am an advocate for snipers being able to be used in S&D in some form. I do concern I am concerned about uh, the viability of them, like just not completely warping the game. But from an entertaining standpoint, they're inevitably more entertaining uh to watch being involved. So hopefully we find a way to make that all work.
Yeah, and I mean, my opinion might be unpopular, but even if they never fix the smokes, or nerf the sniper, like it's got to stay in. Like, um, I don't know. I don't. Excuse me. I don't know how to really explain it. Obviously, you know this, but like maybe to some people that are newer to competitive COD, like sniping and competitive like go hand in hand historically. Because I mean, look at two of our most famous organizations, FaZe and
Yeah.
Optic, were sniping clans before they were competitive esports teams. Um, and sniping is, like people obviously might think of like the op for CS:GO and might think of like, okay, that's an example of a sniper, but like let's be real, when general people think of sniper rifles, they think of Call of Duty. Like this is probably the gun that they think of, or the gun type that they think of the most in relation to this game. And I think when you say we can't have that, we're not going to use that in our most probably our most famous game mode in terms of search and destroy. Maybe, I don't know, team deathmatch or kill confirm might be more famous to a general audience, but like certainly competitively search and destroy is king. I just think when you don't have the most famous guns in the most famous game types, I can't understand that. Even if it is not competitive, I get it. I completely understand. I know it's going to suck, but entertaining is the name of the game. And I remember Simp, I think at BO4 Champs, just going on an insane kill streak with the sniper on. I forget what it's called, but it's like the orange brick on the outside. But like I remember vividly, I can picture him sniping and the crowd going insane for it. I think that's really what we need to be making sure that we have here in terms of competitive. I just don't want to see it go and go back to just ARs and subs for S&D, and I just think that waters down the game. And I don't know if you can really grow the esport as you want to if you are always kind of catering to what is the most competitive, even if it is the right thing to do in terms of kind of the ethics of it and making sure that it's the fairest way to do things. I can't be a supporter of that. I definitely would opt to go for the sniper, even if it doesn't make sense from a competitive standpoint. I think we should real quick, because we're just kind of we're kind of circling this, talk about the map pool and rules before we get into it, because we're talking about like metas and all that. So after the launch invitational, the CDL put out their official maps and modes for at least the beginning of the 2026 CDL season. So in Hardpoint and Search and Destroy, there will be 5 maps each: Hardpoint, Blackheart, Colossus, Den, Exposure, and Scar. And then Search and Destroy, there will be Colossus, Den, Exposure, Raid, and Scar. And Overload, there will be 3 maps: Den, Exposure, and Scar. Interestingly, Raid not in Hardpoint, more importantly, Hardpoint, and also not part of Overload, which I remember, I think Merc talking about it on the stream, and he said like, I think it was Miami versus somebody, and they were playing on Raid Overload, and he's like, this is really, really rare to see any team doing this. And he basically said like, because teams aren't really expecting it to be in the map pool, they're not really practicing it. And like some teams, I guess, during this launch invitation were like, let's play it because of that, because teams aren't really prepared enough to play on this map. I think he said that Telluride Bush tried this as well. But I don't know, like Raid not being in Hardpoint's kind of a miss for me. What do you think of this map pool based on like what we saw this weekend, especially?
Yeah, so that was the one surprise for me with Raid not being in them for Hardpoint. What I saw on the timeline, there was I can't remember what spawn in particular, but I saw somebody tweet like, we're really not playing Raid Hardpoint because of one spawn, or something like that. So I'm not sure exactly what one it was. I think it um might have been like chaining from Garage Hill to Basketball Hill. Like one, I don't remember the exact. I
I
couldn't
think
find the
that is,
tweet,
yeah.
so but something like that. Um, the fact that one spawn could keep out a map like Raid is a little concerning, but glass half full here. The fact that we have options from the new maps in the game, that has to be a good sign in my opinion. Like, they're again heading into this season, we were basically like, we need Raid in all 3 modes because we don't know what to expect from these new maps. Um, so the fact that arguably the greatest competitive Call of Duty map of all time isn't needed in the hardpoint rotation on launch could be a good sign. Um, Maybe it's just they're gonna test it out for Major 1 here, and then it'll make its way back in if that spawn is addressed, or some of these other maps don't play out as well as anticipated. But we'll have to wait and see. Uh, that is the other development from this, though, that I wanted to tie in based on Raid Hardpoint not being included. Uh, Spencer Peterson, who does he have his title on? I don't think he's ever
He's like
actually
the
said what his
director of
title is. But
ops or
yeah,
something like
he
that.
does something for the CDL. Spin a Spence on Twitter. He's always been around since the MLG days. He said they're not going to make any changes to the map pool until after Major 1, which last year, notably, we talked about Hacienda was added during the winter break, so it came in
Yeah.
for the second half of the Major 1 qualifiers. They're not going to do anything, at least right now, according to Spencer. Um, So this is the map pool as we have it until after Major 1. And notably, with this upcoming Season 1 update for Black Ops 7 as a game, we're getting Standoff and Meltdown, which I'm pretty sure. Yes, Standoff, last time we talked about it, we didn't know about it, but we knew about it then. We knew about Meltdown. Standoff was like kind of a surprise. Now Fringe is the other surprise that I don't think we knew about coming this time around. That's a huge plus in
Mm,
my eyes because we talked about this at the end. It was added to the end of Black Ops 6, didn't get a chance to be added to the competitive map pool. Now there's an opportunity for it to enter the pool after Major 1 here since it's being added to Black Ops 7 early on. And I think it was Parasite. He tweeted something like with the wall bounce movement and stuff, especially in like the train track area on
yeah.
Fringe, it might feel a little bit more like Black Ops 3. So that would be kind of cool to see. Um, so Fringe, Standoff, Meltdown in Season 1, those have been confirmed. Yemen we knew about potentially coming. Or Yemen was confirmed to be coming, we just
Yeah.
didn't know when. Slums and Plaza, though, are rumored along with Yemen for Season 2. So 6, Plaza, not really an iconic
I,
map.
no, not an
Competitive. It
iconic.
was
No.
at the start. At the start of Black Ops 2, it
Yeah.
was used. Um, but slums pretty iconic. I mean, I guess Yemen is kind of grouped in there with Plaza, but I've been vocal about thinking that Yemen could be a good option in this game with the quicker movement and whatnot, and it being a bigger map back in the day with the quicker movement. Maybe it doesn't feel as big, and it actually plays well in this game. I'm not sure. The other ones are really iconic competitive maps, but there are 6 options there that realistically, because they are, well, we'll just stick to the 3 with Fringe, Standoff, and Meltdown being confirmed. We know about Yemen. Other 2 um, aren't officially announced yet, but the fact that Raid Hardpoint isn't needed at the start of this map pool, is it possible that some of these iconic maps that are being added to the game might not even make it to the CDL rule set? That's what I have my attention on now because of Raid not being included in this initial rule set for Hardpoint, at least. Obviously, thank God it's in there for S&D, because I would be pretty flustered if Raid was in the game and we just didn't get to see it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where my head went with this map pool announcement and all that. We know some of these maps are coming in. To be fair, we do not know how they will play in Black Ops 7, so that obviously is a big deal. And if there is something like this alleged spawn or whatever in Raid Hardpoint that's causing issues, like, I get it. Um, but we'll have to wait and see. And we know that we don't have to, sit around here and be like, oh, maybe they'll make some changes before Major 1. But we know that allegedly they won't be making any map pool changes till after Major 1. So we've got our map pool for the first set of online qualifiers and the first tournament, and then we'll go from there. By that point, at the end of Major 1, we should have some options at least to test out and potentially switch things up in the map pool.
Yeah. I mean, Fringe. There's like almost no chance, other than respawn stuff, that it doesn't get into the map pool. I mean,
Yes.
like, I mean, we haven't really. I don't know if like we've had any other BO3 maps get remade that I at least can remember. And obviously, with like you said, with the wall bouncing, like it makes a lot of sense why Fringe would be on there. Um, Standoff, like, I mean, I want to see it in. It's just it goes quickly now, like versus Black Ops
That
2.
would be my concern with Standoff too, and Slums. I feel like
Yeah,
both of those
Slums is, yeah. I mean, Slums
would be
I
very
is just a tiny
longer.
map compared
Yeah,
to what it used to be. Meltdown, I think will
probably
100% be in. And Yemen's weird. I mean, like it's been a long, long time since we've seen anything remotely competitive on it. Plaza, I think will work for S&D. I don't know about the respawns because I don't remember Hardpoint being played on that map, and obviously we've
it
never
was.
seen. Yeah, okay. So I don't remember any. I remember where at least or I know remember where the both bomb sites are. I don't
Yep.
remember the hills really, and obviously we've never seen Overload played on any of these maps, I should say, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like we have no idea. So I think just add all the chaos, add all 6 into the map pool to start Major 2 qualifiers, and let there be hell. Let's see how things work out. I mean, why not? Like, I mean, I don't know where we got off on the idea that we could only have 5 maps for
It's for the veto process.
change the veto process. What are we doing? Like, why does there need to be 5 maps? Like, that makes no sense to me. You should make it as big as possible, because then it tells the teams, hey, you don't get to just like hone down on like these 3 maps, maybe practice a 4th, and then you're going to perma ban or perma veto 1 map every single time. Like, none of that. Like, we're going to bring in like 8 maps, have fun. I don't know how you're going to practice it. You're going to have to figure it out. And like, that's personally how I think it should be done.
Preston World League.
I mean, I've said that before. Like, I would love for grand finals of champs to be every map in competitive played in that series. Like, obviously it might not go the full distance, but every map is on the table, which it shows like that's what you got to do. Like, it's a best of 11. Like, hopefully you practice all your maps before the biggest tournament of your life. And I mean, that's obviously a little ranting territory, but I just don't want to see like the same map over and over and over again. And I think that's what we're going to get. Like, it's going to be like scar, scar, scar. And I'm going to lose my mind. And I just don't want to lose my mind when I'm watching the CDL, basically is what I'm saying. But yeah, Spence Spence, he commented, said, obviously map pool won't change until after Major 1. And then someone responded, said, this is the wrong answer, man. They come out in 2 weeks. And he said, map pool is currently strong. No need to make instant changes. Those new maps can definitely provide variety in the future, without a doubt. I personally don't like that. I think like the break is long enough where people should have the time to test it. And especially what if there's a really bad map that we find out in the next few weeks of CDL matches? Like, one map just doesn't work. Like, it's boring. The players don't like it, whatever the case may be. You're telling me like it's like, yeah, we're not going to change it. Like, there's no rule that we can't change it. We're just not going to during this like 4-week break. I don't know like the hard and fast rule to say that. Maybe they backtrack on it and they switch it up at some point. But yeah, I think it's a little weird. But that at least we have the maps going into the season. We know what we're dealing with going into next week. Let's get into these power rankings because obviously we've talked about the tournaments and everything and around that to this point, and we're almost at an hour. So the power rankings, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm sure you probably did in typical Preston fashion your more creative rankings in terms of like actually naming the tiers and whatnot. I started to try and think of some of my own, and then once I got to literally the second tier, I was like, I don't even have a good thing for. Initially, I was gonna have Optic and LAT in the top tier, and then I was gonna have FaZe on their own in the tier below that. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, I don't really have a good way to name this because I just don't know. Like, I'm not putting FaZe there because I think they're like the third best team in the game now, but I think they should be. It's just I had a hard time thinking of how to phrase that description for the tier. And after that, I was like, well, if I'm struggling already, I'm just going to scrap it and we're going with the typical S, A, B, C, D tiers. So, um, yeah, like you said, I actually did do my power rankings before the tournament, and then I did make some slight changes to it after the Monster Invitational. So that was one that I already said there with I initially had Optic and LAT and S, and then FaZe on their own in A. Right now, I got Optic on their own in S, almost winning the whole tournament without dropping a map until the finals. Like, that just kind of solidified it for me. Like, they're the best team in the game. They're the team to beat right now,
Yeah.
coming off of the World Championship. So I was fine having them on their own in S. A tier, FaZe and LAT, no particular order there. I think probably long term for the season, LAT should be the second best team, and I even think they could be a true threat to Optic if Abizi and Hydra get firing in all cylinders, and if Kenny has a true bounce back year. Um, then for B, I thought the B tier was interesting because I feel like some of these teams could have been in a tier with FaZe if you had LAT moved up, or some of the B and C tier teams could have been in their own tier combined, and I just didn't want to have too many teams in the same tiers.
Hmm.
So for me, especially based on them getting to the finals of the Monster event, I got Gentlemates in B tier and then Toronto Koi. Um, the Toronto pick is more just a vibes based thing with me, just because I think this team has the potential. I really like the Joe Deceives and Real SNG duo. I've always been high on Clean X. It's going to be a question of what insight we get this year. But Gentlemate's performance, I think it was like the flank and breaking points power rankings. They were going back and forth between Gentlemaids, Koi, and Heretics, and like where to put them. And I think they ended up putting them all together. For me, I put Heretics in C to start, just because we didn't even get to see Trakes play in this Monster Invitational tournament. Eric Boom played, and it was something with visa issues, him not being able to get here yet. So there's a question of whether Trakes will even be able to play in the initial matches, and we already had a bit of a question mark on this Miami team, even though they had uh, a lot of solid guys and a strong end to the season last year with three of those guys on the team. Just a new guy coming in and being a question mark when we don't know much about him. I've got Miami at the start of C tier right now. Nothing uh, against the guys who played well last year there in Rancor Super and Metals. It's more just a question of what's going on with Trakes. Is he even going to be on the team at the start of the season, or are they going to have to play with Eric Boom or some other sub due to visa issues and whatnot? So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And then in C tier with them, I had Falcons and G2. I initially had G2 in D tier and Boston in C tier, and then I flipped them with G2's performance in the Monster Invitational. Falcons, I think a lot of people, even before the uh, Invitational tournament, people were down on them, and I thought I was a little higher on them, but pretty disappointing initial performance from them. I just didn't feel like they have too much potential there with Celium and Pred and the Bulldog to put them in D tier, in my opinion, even though they had a D tier performance at this first tournament. So if you or anybody else put them in there, I can't be mad about it, but I am hopeful that maybe they can uh, figure things out and get things righted there. And then final tier for me, which would basically be the four teams that don't make champs, is the way I looked at it, would be Boston, Cloud9, Carolina, and Surge. I think again talked about Cloud9. Like I think they have the potential to have a strong start to the season, but I'm not sure how sustainable it will be for them. And that was even before their performance at this tournament. Um, Questions around some of the young guys on Carolina and Vancouver. Not sure what kind of start they'll get off to. And then Boston had a pretty underwhelming performance in the Monster event, and I have been a the opposite of a Boston supporter, while you have been the Boston supporter. So I figured I'd put him in D tier, and we would at least have something different because I assumed you wouldn't do that. So uh, without rambling, my tier list for now: Optic S tier, A tier is FaZe and LAT. B tier is Gentlemates in Toronto. C, Miami Falcons G2. And D, Boston, Cloud9, Carolina, Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't think there are like too many differences. I definitely consolidated like obviously I have a 5 team tier. Obviously it's just like
Oh, wow.
it's like almost half the league, but I don't know, like I did not I mean, let's just put it this way. You were not like super hyped on Miami, and I'm like ready to claim them as like champs runners up at some point. Trake spending. But yeah, I don't like. I mean, I can't really disagree with anything. I would say personally, Miami is the only one that jumps out to me on your tier list as like it seems a bit low. Other than that, I don't think like there's really anything to argue with, at least with mine, because I have a lot of similar ones. I'll pull mine up real quick on stream, but I like you. I kept Optic in a league of their own. Like, you know, I didn't even consider to put LAT, but that's more of a personal thing I think with me, because I don't have LAT as like that team yet, and maybe they do. So yeah, this is my tier list. At the very, very top, we have Optic Texas. That tier is called Brick by Bricked Up. I think that one was a very good call by me. Like we've done this with FaZe a lot over the years, but it's basically like I'm gonna have to be proven wrong on this team until like I'm not gonna move them down until that point. And this launch invitational, I think, was definitely, if you're a supporter of Optic, or if you are kind of like saying that they're going to win champs or anything this year, that's obviously a good first step for that team. I had 4 teams in the second tier, which I put as the Contenders Club, and I had Miami Heretics, Paris Gentlemates, Vegas FaZe, and LA Thieves. So you obviously had Gentlemates down 1 tier and then Miami down 2 tiers from this. I personally think that Miami is the only one here because of Trakes. Even if he gets to America, right? I still have my concerns and my questions, but I just like the rest of this team so much that I think if he's even remotely good, they should be like a top 6 team, and then they will definitely rise into whatever top 3, top 4, depending on the tournament.
I don't want to cut you off,
Yeah.
but I do want to just, as a disclaimer, because I know we've said it before, but we definitely haven't said it in this episode. When we talked about Trakes initially, and when we've talked about Miami really since bringing in Real, they have done a great job of identifying this new talent that the rest of the world just doesn't know about, and they're bringing it in and able to adapt it to their system and see results. So it's really not a question of whether they can replicate that with Trakes. It's just a question of what is Trakes, and that's, we just don't know enough about him yet.
Yeah, and what we've mentioned it, but obviously like he is having visa issues. They did not clarify, because they said that Eric Boom is filling in for him for this tournament, meaning the Launch Invitational. There was no follow-up tweet said like, but he's all good for next week. I don't know what the deal is there. That obviously scares me. Miami benefited from that at one point in time with Real, because he was originally on Carolina. He had visa issues early on in the season. Later in the year, he goes to Miami, and the rest is history. They have a really, really good time with him until he decided, I like Toronto better than Miami, which, I mean, not many of us probably picked that, but yeah, like I think that's a big question mark, and depending on what happens with that, they certainly can fall in these power rankings. I don't know if Eric Boom is like, I know he's like the temporary sub. They have a lot of history with him. I don't know if they say Trakes is not going to be ready until at least after the holiday break. If they bring in someone else for those 2 weeks and they're like, okay, let's just kind of get by until we can get Trakes. I don't know what the deal is there, but at this point, like if he's in there, I'm going to just say that they're a contender. I don't think, like, the only other issue is Gentlemates, at least, or I guess disagreement between the two of us, but I don't think you have like too much of an issue if I say that the Gentlemates are kind of a contender, and that would put them in like the top 4, getting to like championship Sundays, stuff like that. I think that's a really, really talented, like kind of loaded roster. I believe I am like one of the foremost Dan Ghosty believers. I do not understand the criticism around him, like not even an inkling. I think he was one of the most important free agents of the offseason, because I think most teams other than maybe Optic would have gotten better had they added Dan Ghosty. And I think it's a mistake that LAT let him walk. Envoy is kind of in a similar situation, that he's criminally underrated, but he's also generally, like, because he's on such talented teams, quote unquote, the worst player on the team. But if he's your worst player, like, life is good at that point. And I think that he's probably the worst player on Gentlemates, and that means that life should be pretty good for Paris going into the season. Vegas, I would just not bet against them as like a championship contender for the time being, but that could change like a lot easier than it could have changed over the last 5 years or whatever that they were all together. LAT, I mean, I talked about it when the roster changes were happening. I am not a Kenny believer. I am definitely a skeptic on that front. If he's a huge question mark, right? Like there's no debating. Like he had a really bad season, especially for kind of like this Hall of Fame level player to have as bad of a season, especially with Optic as he did last year. He goes to Minnesota. Like he wasn't that bad with Minnesota, but they certainly, he wasn't like setting the world on fire. They'd not make champs. Abizi is a great player, one of the best players of all time. I have no idea what he's going to look like without Simp, even though Hydra is about as talented as anybody else could be. I just have my questions about them, but not enough questions not to put them like in the top 4 or 5 in the CDL. And then my third tier, I said it was don't trust them yet. And it was the Riyadh Falcons and Toronto Koi. These two teams are not similar in the result in the Launch Invitational. Obviously, Riyadh, that really made me not trust them. Toronto was kind of more hit and miss, a lot more what I expected. I mean, the biggest question mark is Exnid, right? For Riyadh. If he's not up to snuff, then it's going to be a really weird season. I don't know if they make that roster move if they start off slow. Like if they play like they did this past weekend to start the CDL season, like I better hope that they're making some kind of roster change at some point in the next few months. Toronto, I think the biggest thing is insight. I mean, he played probably his worst tournament of his career at Champs, and it showed in terms of the team's result. This was a good team last year. I think they got a lot better when they replaced Beans with Real. I have no doubt about that. But the AR is always going to be something I'm going to be pretty skeptical of, with Insight not being at his best, and they just don't have a lot of options. I think if they did have a lot of options, that he wouldn't be on the team personally. And like they were never a true championship contender last year, and they kind of got bumped down as the season went along, even though I think they finished like 3rd or 4th in the standings. So I think they're middle of the road. They could bump up into the contenders, but it's just I'm going to have to see it before I really can feel that way. With Riyadh, it's more just they have so much talent. Like 3/4 of their team are like the perfect guys that I would pick. Like if I was starting an all-star team, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds good to me. It's the 4th, and I just don't know if he's going to drag the team down so much that they're not going to make it. And then the final tier is, I don't know, man. Like I have no idea what to do with these teams because I think I said this before we went live, but I had Boston originally above, I want to say Vancouver in my power rankings. Like as I was making it, I was like, okay, so Boston's over Vancouver. And then I was like, but Vancouver beat Boston. Like, can I really just put them over one another when the result was flipped? And obviously Minnesota and C9 finished top 4 at this tournament. And I just don't like, I cannot believe that that Minnesota and Cloud9 are among the best teams in the league, while LAT and FaZe are kind of like middle of the road. Like I just don't think that makes a ton of sense. So I just ended up putting all these teams in the same grouping. Obviously Minnesota's, how I do power rankings, we've talked about it before, but how I do power rankings is if Champs was today, who do I trust the most to the least? And that's kind of how it goes. Like if there's a huge tournament today, what is kind of my trust level with you, and who do I think can win? Optic is obviously number 1 with a bullet. I would trust nobody even remotely close to them right now. And then when you get down to the bottom, it's like, I think Riyadh has the talent to kind of pull it off. Toronto, I've seen a lot of those players make runs, and I think they're really good. I think the talent is there. Carolina is like a lot of unproven talent. I have no idea what to really do with that. Minnesota is kind of in the same way with like Mamba. I mean, he looked really, really good during this tournament, but it's one online tournament. I have no idea. Cloud9, I do not have faith in. even though like I don't have faith that they can win a championship. I don't look at that roster and be like, yeah, like they could go win champs. Vancouver, like you've mentioned, not now, but maybe in 4 months, they might turn into something that's like, okay, I can see it. Boston, I can't see. Like, they're just never going to win champs. Like, they could get close like they did last year, but I can't, like, even as a Boston supporter, I can't say that they're going to win champs, even though they definitely, I think, improved their roster going into this season. I'm not going to believe that they're a champs contender at any point. So that's why I grouped them as the way I did. I'm sure people will disagree, especially considering Minnesota and C9's launch invitational performances. But any overall thoughts on the power rankings as they are?
I mean, I think it mostly makes sense. Like you said, the one thing that's sticking out really, the difference is in Miami, and I think that just goes to show like I think my ranking for them would be like the absolute lowest for them if like Trakes comes in and doesn't play well.
Yeah.
That would be like their floor, and then you have them towards the top, and that could be their potential if Trakes comes in and is a suitable replacement for Real. So, um, other than that, I think we're pretty much on the same page, which is good to see. But yeah, and it'll be interesting to see in 6, 7 months how wrong we were on some of these teams.
I mean, I don't even want to look at what our power rankings were for last season when we did this, because it definitely, I mean, it ended up like I'm sure we had Optic as like a championship contender, so that ended up working out in the end. But like it was a long like 6 or 8 months to get to that point.
So you never put your rankings for last year.
I'd have to go through the
Um,
stream to look at it.
yeah, but in the notes I had FaZe, Optic, and LA Thieves in S tier, Toronto and C9 in A tier, so
Yeah.
C9's bad. Carolina, Surge. Why do I have? Florida would have been Miami because it must have been old logos, and Minnesota was B. Then I had LAG on their own in C tier, and then Boston and Paris in D tier. What?
So it was Vegas, the Falcons.
Oh yes, okay. Because I was thinking Paris Gentlemen. So I was like, wait, why do I have them both there? When we do our predictions interviews, by the way, our match predictions and stuff, it's gonna be tough to break some of these
No, I'm screwed.
old teams because I was like, for FaZe and stuff, I was like, well, I'm not putting Vegas for FaZe because when I think of Vegas, I think Vegas Legion,
Yeah.
or even Vegas Falcons, and then now with Paris, anytime we hear Paris, I'm gonna think of Paris Legion, not Paris Gentlemates. So that'll be fun, but that's an issue for next episode.
No, I was literally thinking about that as I was doing the predictions. I was like, this sucks. Like, stop changing teams, stop changing cities. Like, it's really confusing me. Because now, like, LAG is like, it rolls off the tongue. Like, it's basically like native language to us. But, like, now it's like, all right, like, there is no LAG. They're dead. But yeah, I think, yeah, we will definitely look at, we're definitely going to update the power rankings as we go through. We've done that. I want to hopefully do it after every major, because that's like a good time to reflect on what we've been talking about. But yeah, we've done it like periodically, like a more irregular basis over the years. And let's just talk about the preseason predictions. Obviously, we did this last year. We have a few real awards, stuff that the CDO actually gives out, and then we have the Ego Chall Podcast, created awards. Let's start at the very top of our list. Rookie of the Year. I remember last year we had like almost no options for this to start the season. And it ended
guys and Rencor.
Yeah, and then it ended up being someone outside of the CDL, which is an option that we always give. So this year,
No, it was Rencor.
oh, he won. Oh, yeah. I forgot. I was thinking that Super won
him.
Rookie of the Year. I know, but I was thinking that Super won Rookie of the Year because I think I made the case that he might or he should win Rookie of the Year at some point later in the year. But yeah, the Rookies of the Year candidates to start this season. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen over the season, but Lurks, Craze, Mamba, Trakes, Abe, Legend, and then someone not in the CDL are our options here. I went with I think what might already be a bad pick, and that is Trakes, because I was thinking, first, how does this player fit into the roster? Are they with players that are going to kind of overshadow them statistically, and kind of in those biggest moments? So like somebody like Mamba, for example, I think Estriel might overshadow him at times and kind of take away from his potential as rookie of the year. And some of these teams, I just don't think they'll be very good, which could change like whether they're even on the team in 3 months or whether people are looking at them as rookie of the year. So I went with Trakes because he's on a team that I think could actually be a contender for the entire season. We've seen last year that even with, he's kind of filling in for Real because that's who he replaced. And Real, if he was a rookie, he would have been in the discussion for Rookie of the Year, even though he had two Rookie of the Year candidates on his team in Super and Rancor. So I think that if he is able to play, and that is a huge if, or how long he's out, I think he could have a good chance at becoming Rookie of the Year, which would be back-to-back for the Miami Heretics. So what did you think for Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I do want to say one name I didn't include on this list is Mercules, just because
I'm
even
not
though this is
considering him.
technically
No,
his full, yeah, I
no.
don't think the champs MVP can win Rookie of the Year. That just seems pretty stupid. Um, I know they said in the past, like it was the Snoopy thing when Snoopy played for Boston, and was that MW2 champs
Yeah, I think so.
before MW3? They said something about him not being eligible, so I'm just assuming Mercules isn't
Yeah,
eligible. If for some reason he is, that completely changes this conversation because I think that's an easy answer there.
yeah, definitely.
Um, but I did go with Mamba. I kind of took the thinking of you. I do think Trakes is in a position where if he plays well, he is joining the best team of these other teams that the other candidates are on, because like Larson Craze on Carolina, Mamba, Minnesota, Abe and Legend on Vancouver. I think Miami is better than all those teams, so like the team success could be a factor here, and I like that ability for Trakes, but just without ever having seen him play, I just
Yeah,
couldn't pick him. So I'm going with Mamba just because, like you said, kind of basing it on him playing well in this Monster Invitational and the team doing a little better than expectations. I think he's got a good shot. I know last year I went with I said somebody not in the CDL right now. I think it's just been proven at this point that if you don't start the year, it is very hard for you to win Rookie of the Year. And I think Super like had the best shot
yep,
of somebody to ever have a shot at winning it, and he didn't even get it because he just didn't play the full season. So I really think the guys Lurks, Craze, Mamba, Trakes, Abe, and Legend, those are like the six legit candidates. So gotta pick one of them, and I'll go with Mamba. It's different than your pick. I think the Trakes picks is fine from a team perspective. Like I said, I think Miami's the best team out of all of these if he plays well. But Mamba mode. Shout out Kobe. I'll pick him.
I think you have to play at least like a third of the season to even have a chance. And if you play only a third, you have to pretty much win out. Like it has to be like if Mercules had won Major 3 with Toronto and then he wins Major 4 and then champs and stuff like that. Like yeah, I think he's gonna win it. But
Well,
like
champs wouldn't
or
matter. They do
yeah,
the voting
but
for.
like if he wins two majors and that's like
Yeah.
really all that he's played, I think he might get it. But that's like a perfect scenario. And Super obviously didn't rise to that level, even though it was like this is kind of crazy how good he is. And Mercules was also in that like okay, like they're pretty good now. But yeah, I think it's anything less than half. It's like a real like it can't be a lot of good options at that point to win Rookie of the Year. In that scenario,
And I will say Legend or Legend, however you
yeah,
actually
Legend.
say his name. He's got the talent. He's a winner in another game. So like if he ends up being the Rookie of the Year, like that's a really cool storyline, and
Yeah.
I can see it happening. But just right now it's tougher to envision just based on like he is just he
He's green.
from a lack of experience, yeah, green is a good way to put it. Like he just doesn't have that experience that these other guys have, at least playing in challengers. So it'd be a really cool storyline if he pulls it off. I'm not gonna pick him, but if it does happen at the end of the year and like he just like turns into a monster, I wouldn't be totally shocked.
To kind of illustrate how weird it is, other Halo players like Bounds and Renegade are starting in challengers. So, like, in I don't
I
know if they're going to be any good in challengers. Like, that's kind of the hard thing about this.
It's a tough comparison to make, but Shotzi, when he
Yeah,
got his first start here with the Dallas Empire, I just remember like that those initial matches he was really struggling. And then I'm pretty sure it was I can't remember the exact way. I think it was Hook or they had Shotzi using the trophy system and smoke grenade or something. It was more of like a slower paced SMG without the dead silence and being able to run around. And then they switched Hook to take the trophy and they gave dead silence to Shotzi and let him run around. And that kind of unlocked him. And that's like maybe that's something here where Legend is like just a slow start because like you said doesn't have the experience and then something happens and something clicks and we see the MVP Halo caliber player that he is in COD. That'd be pretty cool.
I think I mean, obviously, like when we make these comparisons, because there are only so many Halo players that have come over
Yeah.
and like actually had success, but like the ones that jump out are like obviously Shotzi, Hook jumped back and forth, like that's not um, um, Frosty, Enable, Formal. I don't consider like the OG guys like Krim. Like I know he was a Halo Pro to begin, but it was like so long ago. Like it competitive COD was just in a different state when, and I think he also jumped back and forth a little bit back in the day, but like there aren't that many examples of it actually working. Like even guys like what's his name, Snipe Down, like he wasn't that great at COD, even though he's like I think one of the best Halo players of all time. I don't know if the Ogres ever tried to switch over at any point, but I mean Ogre 2 is a very good GM, so like maybe he could have played as well. But
Did he
what
play on the Black Ops 2 champs team with Mr. X? Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I don't. Oh, I don't even know what team that would have been. I don't even remember that.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Maybe. I mean, weird stuff have happened. Like there were some weird teams at those old champs, and
Yeah. So it was Team Rage. They got top 40. Oh no,
top
COD
40.
champ.
Like
No, they got top 44 at the Winter Championship, but
okay,
top 24 at COD Champs 2013. It was Ogre 2, Mr. X, Compact, and Zero BC.
I don't know those other two guys, but I mean,
They don't
Mr.
even
X was a
have.
coach by the end of the season, so I don't know if that really was working out for them. What I was gonna say about the Halo stuff is like with Shotzi in particular, he also had the just absolute fortune of being literally teammates with two of the greatest players of all time at the same time, and he was also on a 5-man team. So like if he was bad, it wasn't as big of a deal as if he's part of a 4-man team and he's not doing well. He also, I don't know, like he was kind of doing some nutty stuff in S&D, like in BO3 before he was eligible to play and everything. So I think, he's a unique case. Frosty's probably the best example. And if, again, like I said, if Legend ends up like Frosty, that's a good deal. Like Frosty was really good as a COD pro. He just didn't want to do it. He did not like playing COD, which I mean, respect to the man. Like he's a very good Halo player as well. So we'll see what happens with Legend. I think he's going to be kind of fascinating to watch on that team in particular. We also have the most improved / comeback player of the year. You put
Which,
examples. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just examples I put for our potential guys for this year, so we don't have to name them off. But last year we did say when we talked about this, it was at the time for Illy uh, coming back, or that was that 2 years ago now.
No, it was last year. I'm pretty sure.
we said if Illy wins, whenever we did this, we were like, we're gonna name this the Illy Award if he comes back and ends up frying. But obviously that hasn't happened. So we're still looking for a name here. Is the point I was trying to get at. Go ahead.
I mean,
Sorry.
the issue still stands. If Illy does come back, it's getting named the Illy Comeback Player of the Year. We've kind of like split it up into 2 awards, and it might be better if we actually do just make it 2 awards in general, because Most Improved and Comeback are different. I know the NBA likes to just give Most Improved to like the guy that averaged 25 and now he's averaging 30, which is just kind of BS. Shout out John Morant. But I think Most Improved for me, I said Lunars, because he came in, he obviously got picked up early in the season by LAG last year, and he just did not have a good season. LAG did not have a good season. He was kind of touted as like this really, really talented rookie, and people thought he could kind of turn heads, and that just didn't happen for him. I'm really, really happy that he got another shot. I mean, he performed pretty well in the Launch Invitational. I think the talent has to be there. Like, there's no way that people were just like missing the boat entirely, thinking like he's really good in challengers, and then he just comes up to the CDL and it's like, yeah, he's just not good. Like, I cannot believe that to be the case, especially when like my boy Kismet, which is my comeback player of the year, he was on one of the worst teams in the league, and he is like the ultimate team player, and he's awesome. He's a former champs MVP. I'm not going to believe that these 2 guys are just like worthless, or they can't come back and they can't make leaps in their game this year. So for me, I said Lunars for Most Improved because he hasn't come back from anything. And then Kismet because we've already seen him at like the peak of his powers and where he was last year. So I went with Lunars and Kismet for Most Improved and Comeback Player of the Year.
I like the Kismet shout. I had similar thinking to you, just went with different names. I have Afro for Most Improved. Sort of similar to what you were saying with Lunars. It's just whole thing last year and even before that has been like Afro needs to get back in the CDL. He's frying in challengers. That it looked like he was going to have a shot with Carolina at the end of last year. Then that fell through for EWC. So that it feels like this has been a waiting game here, and now he's getting his shot at redemption, and he has to capitalize on it, because if he doesn't, then he's probably on the outside looking in again for the CDL.
Definitely.
So I got Afro for Most Improved. I'm expecting him to come back with a vengeance. And then comeback player. I really couldn't just pick one, but I had similar thinking to you. I got Kenny or Insight down here, and it was really it's going to be obviously individually whoever has a better uh, season would probably end up getting this fictional award.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, the team success is going to play a factor in it as well. And I think if LAT is going to be a strong team this year, or if Toronto is going to be a strong team, both of these guys have to have comeback player of the year type seasons. So, really wasn't able to just pick one, but that was my thinking with that.
I think honestly Neptune is a candidate for like the naming of this award, probably for the comeback player. I mean, even though he was Most Improved as well, like, I mean, that's kind of just ridiculous, and I think he won it for we named him the winner at the end of the last season. I don't again subject to change. I think if Illy ever plays a CDL match again, like he's getting this award. I like the picks. Afro could also fit in the comeback player of the year because, I mean, it's obviously been several years now, but he was really good with the London Royal Ravens. And then, I don't know, he's kind of been out in the wilderness for a while now. And like you said, if he doesn't perform this season, I just don't see him getting like another chance like anytime soon. Like maybe he has to go down to challengers again and really, start winning tournaments again. Kenny's a really interesting pick. Like he's ripe for the comeback player of the year because he could literally win champs this year, and then all that talk about like he might look back at whatever I said and said he's one of the worst players in the CDL when he was with Optic, and it doesn't matter anymore. And Insight is also a really good pick. So I can see literally all of these happening, and they honestly all might happen simultaneously, and then we'll just have a really hard time picking at the end of the year as to who actually wins. First roster change, we've always I feel like we've always done this, like even when we weren't doing awards and predictions and stuff, because it's always the most interesting thing to think about
Yep.
is like which one of you guys is going to make a change 2 weeks into the season. Last year, I think
Optic.
like it was the defending world champions and they made it after the second week of the season. I don't remember who
First week.
Oh yeah, it was the first
We
week.
only played 2 matches with Fred.
Do you know who we picked for last year, like who we predicted? I would guess that Miami was one of us because I think they had a substitute to begin the season, and
I picked Miami and you picked Toronto.
Yeah, I was not a big I'm not a big beans guy. I gotta say it. And also Joe, I was not entirely sure of like how it would work out with everything. But I mean, obviously that was not the case because they never made a roster change. I bet like if they had $1 billion, they would have given it to Mercules after Major 3, but things just didn't work out like that. The first roster change for this year, though, I did not think that there was like a real easy pick here because I don't think that there's one that's like one. You never know when these teams are actually going to spend money to actually sign someone, which is a big thing. And two, like some of these teams are just really loyal, and I don't think that there's one team that's like, yeah, they're really bad. Like I don't even know what they were thinking when they put this roster together. So you go first. Who do you think is the first roster change of the 2026 CDL season?
So I'm going to put a stipulation out here. We are not counting Trakes for this first roster.
I put Miami down because of that. Because I was thinking like, I mean, he might get replaced like in 2 weeks.
If he doesn't end up playing and gets replaced, I'm okay with that counting. If you want to count that, but like if Eric Boom counts, starts the season and then he gets Trakes comes in and fills in, like we're not counting that as the first roster change. So putting that out there. But you brought up money. You brought up some of the teams being willing to make changes and stuff, and that's where my head went with this. So I have Falcons down as the first team to make a change. I think we saw last year they gave the all-Saudi roster an opportunity, and they made a change probably quicker than either of us actually expected when they scrapped the project halfway through the year. They've now reportedly invested an absolute boatload of money into Celium and Pred and Kismet. And I think if they get off to a shaky start, they are going to be eager to spend more money and make a change to replace Xnid. But that was the big factor for me as well, is thinking about some of these other teams and the financial situations. Like I don't think if Boston struggles, I don't see them making a change just because they haven't over these last couple of years. Same thing with Carolina. Cloud9 even really didn't they allegedly are having the cheapest CDL roster ever or whatever, so they kind of went out the window for me. Minnesota really didn't want to make a change last year, and then Kenny kind of fell into their lap. So like some of those bottom teams really just like from a financial standpoint, it didn't make a ton of sense to me to pick them to make the first change. So that's why I was like, okay, financially it doesn't make sense for them. I could financially see Falcons just being like, yeah, screw it, we're gonna spend more money and try and make an upgrade on somebody. So I'm picking Falcons for a first roster change because of that.
Okay, so this is crazy because this just happened yesterday. There was a report that the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, which is like the sports washing kind of like arm, basically, or what they use to sports wash, they are reportedly running low on cash, and they are considering pulling out of several of their investments. So we'll see if let's see if Call of Duty League.
I'm not changing my answer.
I wanted to say it because
that's funny.
I mean, maybe they'll be like the CDL actually is a better investment than like heavyweight boxing or the PGA Tour. I don't know. I mean, I personally would invest in the CDL before the PGA Tour, but that's just me. Maybe it happens. I don't know if that will affect it. We've seen teams that are seemingly in financial distress, like just continue to spend money and continue to do things that I did not expect them to do. LAG is like a perfect example when they were dying and then they just kept making changes. And I don't know, like Boston's also one of them, but like you said, I don't think Boston's going to make a change, at least be the first team to make a change. Maybe they do at some point, shuffle someone out, bring someone in. I said Miami if we're counting Trakes, because I do think that there's a possibility that it basically is the Real situation where he's not able to play before the winter break, and sometime during the winter break, they actually sign someone as kind of like a permanent part of their roster, because they just don't want to they don't want to have to rely on Trakes, coming in or when that might be. So I said if that counts, Miami. I said Cloud9 is an option because I just don't believe in that roster, like even a tiny bit. I absolutely adore Vivid. I think obviously it was a really bad move by Carolina to drop him, no matter what his KD was, because they fell off the face of the earth after dropping him. He would also be a good comeback player of the year candidate if he's able to be on Cloud9 the entire season. But yeah, I just don't believe in the team. They had a really good launch invitational, so that kind of scared me a little bit. But I think they might make a change. They're also supposedly really strapped for cash and not spending a lot of money, which could change it. And then I said, to be a little spicy, I said LAT. LAT, historically, one of the more active teams when it comes to roster changes. Nate Shot, really it was J-Cap, I think, that was getting blamed for it. But they were making a ton of roster changes a few years ago. I think they were basically changing the roster like every few weeks. Then they hit it like a world championship roster. They've been sticking with these teams throughout the season for the most part. This is a world championship contending team. LAT just doesn't seem to have the kind of patience for that team to be bad. I mean, pull up Nate Shot's tweet from whenever that was, like major one, or maybe it was minor one, honestly. Yeah, and I mean that's, I've said my piece on that, but like I think that does kind of illustrate, maybe if they don't do well to begin the season, maybe if our boy Kylo Ken does not do well to start the season, maybe there's a change. They seemingly have the money and the willingness to spend money to improve their roster. I don't know who that would be. Like they, in my opinion, foolishly let Ghosty go. So who's going to replace these players? Scrap is not getting replaced. Hydra's not getting replaced. So it comes down to Abizi and Kenny. Kenny is by far the most vulnerable of those four. I think there's a chance. I don't know if they'll be the first. But I really just don't know with any of these teams who's going to pull the trigger. And we saw last year with Optic. Granted, very different circumstances, but I mean, world championship teams or contending teams do make roster changes when it is necessary, even if it is very shocking to do so. MVP. So I think we're pretty good on these MVP picks. Like we're always like within the top 2 or 3 in our picks typically. Yep. Did we pick Scrap last year? Do you remember? I'm assuming I picked like Simp. That seems like something
I picked Scrap.
Okay.
And you picked Celium.
And
then for Champs MVP, I picked Celium and you picked Scrap.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yep, I remember that now. So MVPs in the past: Shotzi in 2020, Simp in 21, Celium 22, Hydra 23, Simp again in 24, and Scrap last year. We're in agreement on who we think the MVP is this year. It is like I said it at the beginning of the show. He literally might be the best player in the world, and he's like 20 years old. He's played like, I don't know, 15 CDL matches in his career. It's Mercules. I think obviously Hydra, Scrap, Simp, Joe Deceives has I think a legitimate shot depending on if Toronto is able to compete. So there are some really good options, but I just don't see anybody getting to Mercury's level. Is there anybody else that you think could be in contention for this?
I mean, some of the other Optic guys, obviously.
Yeah.
Scrap again. If FaZe has a strong season, Simp has always got to be in the conversation. Hydra and Abizi, so literally 3 of the guys on LAT could all be in contention. But yeah, there's actually a post from Breaking Point that Simp started his CDL career with a 21-7 match record. So that's in 28 matches. Mercules has played 28 matches and he is 22-6. So the Breaking Point tweet is technically this is the hottest start ever for any COD player in the CDL era,
Oh, okay.
and that's pretty good company there for Mercules to be just slightly ahead of Simp, and obviously Simp had a historic start um, to his career. So I just I saw Let's Record Show. I put my pick in first, and I had Mercules. I think Preston just copied me. But in all seriousness, I think this is one that's like if Optic is as good as they have been, and Mercules has just been a major piece of that success. I mean, it's scary to think about, but like realistically, it's only going to be his first full season in the CDL, but there is a legitimate shot this kid might just be the best Call of Duty player in a very long time. Like he just all of the off season tournaments that Optic was doing with like Scump and Embos and Crim and Formal, like some of these retired guys on old COD games that Mercules possibly never even played before picking up. Like he was frying in those. Like I think this kid is just a natural gamer, and everything we've seen so far from him early on, and especially in a game right now dominated by an AR meta, and it's kind of like a do-it-all AR, and that's kind of like he was picked up to be a flex, and like a flex getting like a do-it-all gun, like it feels like that's a recipe for success here for Mercules to be the season MVP.
Yeah, I think at least the trend is like every 2 to 3 years we get one of these little mutants that just have basically been in like a test tube, just been playing COD their entire lives. Like, I mean, the last three that I can think of is Simp, Hydra, and Mercules as just guys like that. It doesn't make sense why they're this good. Like right out of the gate too. Like they're barely playing in challengers, or in Sim's case, I don't think he ever played in challengers or whatever the equivalent was back then. I can't think of who would have been before Simp, like in the 2016-17 range. But like, I mean, it's kind of crazy. And he has honestly the potential to be better than either of them. And we're talking about Simp, the 2-time MVP, Hydra, 1-time MVP. They're both world champions. Or no, yeah, they're both world champions. Like, I don't know, like that's kind of crazy to really think about. So do you want to, as a tiebreaker, because you cast some allegations against me that I copied your pick, let's pick a second player. We'll pick different players as kind of a tiebreaker because we both think Mercury is going to win. But if he wins, who actually gets like a point, I guess, even though the points don't matter. It's like whose line is it anyway. So,
Do you want to do a non-Optic player for this one?
Yeah, sure. I I I will go with Hydra.
Cool. I'll take Scrap then.
Okay, so that works out. So that's our little tiebreaker, and I guess if Hydra or Scrap win, then we'll get that pick as well. This is a Ego Chall Classic, the Paris Legion Memorial Award, which really is, we're back to Paris, but the Legion remain dead. This is the worst team in the league, according to record/CDL points at the end of the regular season. So in 2020, we had the Seattle Surge and the LA Gorillas, rest in peace. 2021, we had the LA Gorillas, rest in peace, and the Paris Legion, rest in peace. 2022, the Paris Legion. 2023, London Royal Ravens. 24, the Boston Breach. And in 2025, it was the Vegas Falcons. So the only team remaining of that is the Boston Breach. They're the only one that has had the same team name and the same city that they soiled with one of the worst seasons in CDL history. So this is who we think is going to finish last at the end of the year. It really pained me to type this. I don't know. I think I was having a mental breakdown when I was doing these notes. I said the Boston Breach. I think that will come as a shock to the millions in the audience tonight. Um, I don't know. Like I was a little scared, I will admit, about the launch invitational. I thought, losing those matches was not great for my boys. I do not think that they will. I think they'll be able to compete and be like upset spoilers like as they were last year. But they. I don't know. I think the league is better this year. To be quite honest, I think some of these rosters. I don't believe in C9, but I also believe that they could win enough matches to kind of get out of this danger zone. Uh, Pretty much like Carolina, like you said last year. And I think Minnesota is probably not going to have the worst season. I just honestly, I just think that Boston might come up on the wrong end of this. I don't think that of the teams that we're seeing right now, I don't think that there is one where it's like, holy crap, they are horrific. Like the Vegas Falcons when we started last year, it was like they are quite obviously the worst team in the league, and there's no doubt about it.
We both picked them.
I mean, we would be stupid if we didn't pick them. Like they were awful. Even when they got good players, they were bad. So like I mean, I just there I don't see any team, and I don't know if you agree. I don't see any team in the CDL in this season, to at least to start, where you're like, what is going on here? Like, why are they a team? This is a challengers level roster. I don't see that in any team. So I think Boston just might come out on the wrong end of this.
So I think Vancouver might actually be like the safest pick from this,
I
just
thought
in a
about it.
world where they get off to a slow start
Yep.
and they aren't able to climb themselves out of the hole. But my whole thing here has been like I think they are going to have a slow start, but then I think they are going to get at least a little bit better, and that's what makes me think they aren't going to be dead last. That's why I went with Carolina. I think they are going to be a team that's like, maybe they get it off to a decent start at the start of the year again, but I don't think they're going to replicate what they had last year. And I just think they're going to be on the back foot for a majority of the season unless they make some big changes early, and I just don't really foresee that. Um, so yeah, especially after the Monster Invitational, like Cloud9 and Minnesota could have been two other contenders here. They both had decent showings at that tournament. Even though Carolina did beat G2, I think I said
Yeah.
earlier.
Winners round one.
Yeah, so I don't know. I do think this might be a year where it is, a little bit tougher and some team surprises us and just really stinks and we weren't uh foreseeing it, but I don't know. I'm gonna go with Carolina for now, and we'll have to see who has this distinguished honor in a couple months.
Champs winner. Obviously, Optic has won back-to-back champs going into this season. 2020, it was the Dallas Empire. 21, Atlanta FaZe. 22, LA Thieves. And 23, the New York Subliners. I mean, a lot of times we pick LAT or FaZe because that makes a lot of sense. But I think that the MVP is on this team. I think that they might have like another MVP candidate on this team by the end of the year. I'm going to go with Optic, which would be absolutely insane to win
Yep.
3 in a row. The Green Wall will be going absolutely nuts to do that. And that would put Shotzi at 4 rings. And would that officially make him the greatest player of all time? So,
Might officially make him a superstar.
yeah, Aches would be absolutely just destroyed. Who do you got as the champs winner?
I'm going LAT. I think it's gonna be similar to last season where we saw, not necessarily a slow start, but like they got better as the season progressed, and it was just Champs was the one. They didn't show up in final form after looking like the undisputed best team for a solid chunk of time before Mercules joined Optic. Um, Picking Optic to get a three-peat though, that's so tough. It's like in
Yeah,
baseball nowadays, like the Dodgers just repeated in the World Series, and it was the first time in 27 years, something
since
like
the
that, since like the
Yankees.
90, yeah, it was the 98, 99, 2000 Yankees. So like it's something that's just so hard to do, and three-peating is even more hard than going back to back. So um, it's nothing against the Optic guys or anything. I had a feeling you might pick Optic too, so I wanted to have something different. And I mean, just the Beezy Hydra Scrap trio, like that's so scary, man. If they figure it out, they could be a really dangerous team. And that I went champs MVP too. I went with a Beezy. The storyline of him potentially winning champs in his first season without Simp, uh, possibly separating himself in that that ongoing conversation of where they both rank in the all-time list of players. A Beezy would have another ring over him, and that would start a cool narrative. So that's where my head's at for that.
Yeah, and I said Hook. I mean, he would also be a really great story too to
Yep.
get his third ring, and I mean, like, he's got to have one of the most unique careers of
Oh
any
yeah.
CDL pro. Like his story is amazing. The only reason I didn't say Mercules is like a lot of times the champs MVP is not the same as
Yep.
the actual season MVP, even if it's like the same team. I think, and I didn't really think about it until we were talking about the champs winner, but like if Shotzi, like if Optic wins and Shotzi becomes the first 4-time world champion, like if he plays remotely well, like statistically, I could see them giving him champs MVP because like this is such an incredible honor that they like. Well, it's just kind of get caught up in the moment about this one player making history. So obviously, long time to go. I think it's in
Yeah.
June, so we won't be really talking about champs MVPs for a while now. Obviously, this was a large, gargantuan, gigantic, gargantuan show.
Gargantuan.
Yeah, whatever he said. But yeah, this has been nearly 2 hours, one of our longer episodes in a real long time. But I liked it. I mean, I love
Yeah.
doing the power rankings and the predictions and everything. And we will check in with the power rankings probably in the next 2 months after Major One. We will never touch these preseason predictions until like June when we're doing our champs wrap up and everything, or champs preview, I think. But yeah, I think this was a great show. I appreciate everybody who tuned in and watched. We had a few people come into the stream. Chris Mendez, London Vex. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Always appreciate the support. If you can do so, please like, subscribe, or follow the podcast feed wherever you're listening or watching on. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and as well as YouTube. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at JBank with 2Ks, at Pres Byers, podcast tours at Ego Chall Podcast. We will be back next week. So we're planning to be on a regular schedule. We're not doing 2 shows this week because of the holidays and going out of town and stuff. But starting next week, I think we might start doing our 2 shows per week. Next week we will be talking about obviously the first set of CDL 2026 matches, the predictions for that one. I think it's going to be a great show, a great season, and I'm very excited that the CDL is back in our lives again. That does it for me. Bink, take it away.
Yep. Thank you guys as always for all the support. Like Preston said, shout out the guys in the chats tonight, but also shout out everyone who tuned in to the last YouTube video, which was our best, most viewed YouTube video in 9 months. I think I texted you. It was our most since we talked about optics struggling at Major One last year. So pretty wild to think about, but uh, yeah, if that's any indication for what the views could look like for the rest of the season, it's got me even more fired up for what's to come. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We got so much more. The predictions next week, and the matches actually start. The online matches do tend to drag a little bit, but a new game will help with that. And then we're right into after the holidays, right back into a couple online matches and our first lane event. So really looking forward to the season. Hope you guys are too, and hope you'll join us on this journey as we bring you guys all the coverage and whatnot throughout the season. So, yeah, thank you guys as always, and remember to send the chow.